beyond the game, building careers in sport. An overarching theme for this two-day PlayCom summit has been sustaining a sports culture. And a career in sport is a major arm of this conversation. We've got some very distinguished panelists coming up on stage to talk about this. May I invite Nilesh Kulkarni to come up, please? Nilesh, requesting you to join us, founder, director, International Institute of Sports Management, of course, former India left arm spinner, had the distinction of picking up a wicket of the very first ball that he bowled in Test match cricket. I think it was Marvin Attapattu whom he got out in Colombo in that. You're the man for the moment. You choose where you want to sit. I think preferable. Well, then you sit this side. Yeah, absolutely. Well, good to have you here with us, Nilesh. Thank you so much for joining in. May I invite on stage Dr. Amit Bhalla, Vice President, Manav Rachna University. He's been a keen contributor in driving innovation as Dr. Bhalla in the field of education and sport, aligning the two with great aplomb. Actively involved in India's sporting ecosystem. He's been the co-chair of FICCI's Sports and Youth Affairs Committee and the ISSF President Ambassador. And the kind of contribution that we've seen in shooting from Dr. Bhalla, I think, is commendable. Right, may I invite on stage John Gloster, head Phyio Rajasthan Royals. May we have you on stage. One of the most respected figures in sports science and athlete care. Over 2 decades of frontline experience, elite cricket experience, including time spent with the Indian cricket team as well. John, great to have you here with us. Pleasure that you could take time out and join us today. May I invite on stage Dr. Shobhit Jain, IRS Joint Secretary, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sport, Government of India. Great to have you here with us, sir. You know, talk about the unorthodox. He makes the entry from the side, quite like, you know, I'd like to tell you a bit about him because he's a doctor by training, a taxman by profession, and worked at the intersection of finance, trade, taxation, health, and public policy. So, a man who's seen many seasons across different spectrums. It's great to have you here, sir, and for you to share your experience with us today. Thank you so much. And to moderate this panel, may I invite on stage Varghese K. George, resident editor, The Hindu. Pleasure to have you here with us, sir, to man this discussion. He is, of course, previously worked at the newspaper's US correspondent based in Washington, D.C., and the political editor based in New Delhi. So it's an esteemed moderator for an esteemed panel. Looking forward to this.
Thank you, and thank you, panelists, for joining us this afternoon, Saturday. And thank you all for joining us for a very exciting session. This topic goes beyond professional sports. In fact, we are going to speak about opportunities that are adjacent to sports. But India being a country where you have a large number of people who are actually requiring jobs, we need to discuss what skills are required to and what are the business opportunities there, and how we tie it all into one compact. So that's the topic of discussion: the careers in sports. So here I am sure we are speaking about not professional sporting, like not professional sport, the people who are joining sports, but various other fields. So we have an esteemed panel here. So let me start with Nilesh Kulkarni. Can you just introduce this topic? How this thought about the Institute of Sports Management came about? So that, I think, would be an opening for all other points that we will take up in the next 28 minutes right now.
Thank you. This is a very interesting piece. For a number 11 batter to come on the stage first and to be asked the question first is a very unique start for me. So I'm opening the innings today, which is a good thing. Coming to your question, yes, about see, the emergence of IPL as a sports annual property allowed India to consider business of sport as a platform for creating opportunities for aspiring professionals to make a career. Post IPL, PKL, ISL, all the national leagues, private leagues got established, through which there are opportunities got created, and our introduction of IISM actually started with the IPL in 2008, when me and my wife actually saw more than 100 plus foreign people managing an event like IPL. That actually became a start for us saying that why can't we have trained professionals from India managing large scale Indian sporting economy driven opportunities to make a successful career. And that actually became a start point for us to introduce IISM. But now, over the years, what we have seen, not only national leagues, but even the state leagues, the marathons, there are more than 1500 marathons across India which are only over the weekend. And marathon as a sport is a very unique sport where you pay and you run to generate a revenue. Creating opportunities to have jobs within those areas have actually become very significant opportunities. You talk about IPL only, there are more than 35,000 people actually work in one single event for 2.5 months, which is IPL. You talk about ISL, which is over 5 months, there are more than 10,000 people who get engaged from franchise to broadcasting to partners to sponsors to event management, content creation, everyone. Like ISL, like Wrestling League, like Panja League, you have now many leagues creating establishment. And if you look at worldwide, the business of sport and the science of sport have actually established around sporting annual properties and not bilateral. And now in India, we have more than 15 national leagues and hundreds of state and other leagues. Leave apart the district and the private part of it. Government of India is doing enough and more by creating almost more than 930 size centers, 25 high performance centers. That adds more layer of creating job opportunities.
Right. Right. So that is one aspect of it, which is like high-end professional sports. So as the earlier panel here had discussed, sporting activity is now gone beyond that, and it has become a community-driven thing, from neighborhood gyms to massive yoga practice in our neighborhoods, so on and so forth. So all that, I think, when we're talking about sports careers, I think maybe if we could actually expand the discussion, including into that, for example, physiotherapy as a professional choice or career choice is not anymore only any longer only about a professional cricket team. I think our neighborhoods also need more physiotherapists, more gym trainers, including businesses. Starting and running a local gym actually has created much more opportunities today than say a decade ago. So how would you, as a policymaker, see these emerging trends, and what are we going to prepare for?
Yeah, thank you for sharing my thoughts. I see it on a larger platform. As my introduction said, I am probably an outsider to sports, seeing it from various perspectives. There are a lot of shifts that are happening in the country today. Sports is a part of it. On a educational front, if you see, we are going from structured vertical hardcore degree segments to integrated learning, interdisciplinary approaches. From government, it is going a shift to private, both on the training or the education part and also on the job market side. So as sports grows, its ramification into various components of the events, the sports careers, the sporting ecosystem grows. If you watch out, we have brought in the new sports policy. Earlier, the policy was largely about khiladi, medal. Today, we structured it into five verticals, and one whole vertical is devoted to the economy of sports. So, where we are talking about bringing big games in, building capacities around sports, and also building the capacity that is required for an athlete to perform. So, whether it is physiotherapy, which is well, I would say, visible part of it, but also on the behind, there would be people like on the tech side innovating, or on the data analytics side helping out structuring things. So this whole shift is enabling the shift in the sporting ecosystem also. Today, when we talk of careers uh, around the sports, you add sport to any career, and there is a career. I can't think of any career where I can't use the word adjective and there is not a niche career into it. Whether it flows from a structured degree or a specialization which is on ground, or maybe by enhancing your exposure to it, is a different matter. But we have sports data analytics, we would have sports medicine. Nowadays we are working with 2 or 3 of the universities to have formal courses in sports medicine, but we already have doctors specializing over here. Then we could have, just add word sports to anything: sports management, sports PR, sports media, sports journalism. I think the whole canvas is rich because once the sports is happening. And this is being enabled by the whole shift in the sporting ecosystem. So once we have this new Niti in, and on the background we already have, which is already thing in the motion in the education side, is the new education policy, which is giving a lot of impetus to exposure, whether by a credit system or something. So we have a revolution happening on the training side also, both the demand and the supply side. That's how I see things.
Right. So let us turn to the training side then. Amit Bhalla, as an educational entrepreneur, how are you responding to this changing requirements and opportunities?
See, I see sports as something which should be in the DNA of the schools and universities. And because if you pick up anybody's journey in their life, the first time when you try a sport is either in your neighborhood or in a school. So I first time tried playing golf when I was 20, and my son tried golf when he was 6, right? Because his school had that option for him where he could try that. So educational institutions play a very vital role, first in broadening the base, then if you bring in some flexibility in the learning and the sports balance of taking out time. It should not be either or. What we need to work in education and sports is sports and education, education and sports together. Generally in the past it was either or, either you are an athlete or you are somebody who will go and get some good marks and you will build a career in maybe being an engineer or being a doctor. I have seen that shift happening in the education sector, even with the parents. The other thing what I have seen is the participation of families and parents, what support they have started giving to their child. There was a time when child was introduced, when you had few visitors at home, that listen, he is very good at science, he is very good at mathematics, this guy can speak or recite this poem, he can talk about this shalok. Now when you meet a parent today of a child, he speaks about the what sports the child is playing. So it's very encouraging to see that shift and that transition in the priorities and the pride of a player, of a parent, and of the community. Educational institutions at large have started accepting, respecting, and acknowledging the athletes' effort, their achievements, have started giving them weightage. There was a campaign which was started, sports ke liye marks, marks for sports, instead of just focusing on marks. So that has also brought in a lot of focus, and thanks to the government for bringing in that sense of I would say the pride and the focus area for the government, that we want to be a sporting nation, we want to be a nation which is not only participating, which is also hosting some big events in the country. As what Nilesh said, why do we have to have other nations helping us in building our ecosystem of sports? Why can't we build ourselves? One more point which I see is that there was a time when the sports coaches, particularly in schools, they were more or less people who were not focusing on sports, but they were focusing on the discipline of the school. So if you go back to your old school days, the sports sir or the PT who was there, he was trying to manage the discipline of the institution or the schools. It has changed now. You find real coaches. You find them coaches in the field of play instead of seeing them in the corridors. So that action in the field of play and that action in the dreams, what what changes have brought in the parents, in the athlete, in the government ecosystem, the education ecosystem. I see a very, very bright future of my country in sports through education, as well as with the support of the entire policy which is taking place in the country.
Uh, John Gloster, so I think you are possibly the only person on this panel who actually is doing what we are discussing. So how did you end up doing what you're doing, and what lessons could we learn from your career trajectory, and how you got here?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you very much for this platform for us to all sort of share our knowledge and obviously move on to bigger things in the world of sport in India. If we look back, I was very fortunate to be involved with a couple of key events which probably kick-started a lot of these conversations, one of them being us winning the 2007 World Cup in South Africa. I'm talking cricket now, but I won't later on. And then the IPL itself. And both of those, the IPL was a seismic shift in sport in this country. We can't deny that. And the follow-on effect of, particularly in the infrastructure build, the ecosystem build, and the appreciation for that ecosystem in supporting sport or a sporting tournament or body was recognized. So we need to look at that as being a catalyst to where we are today. There are a lot of lessons to learn from that, obviously, but first of all, I want to highlight that we are now firmly in the global spotlight for sport in this country. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is because we're now an economic powerhouse, and we need to take advantage of the fact that economic powerhouses normally and usually become sporting powerhouses with time. So I think we've started that journey now, and we need to grab that and run with it. And we're going to have to work out strategies how that's going to happen. But that is going to happen. The second thing is we're very much on the global focus because of, again, the IPL has now become the #1 most valuable sporting property in the world. Most valuable sporting property in the world. Now suddenly you've got the whole world, particularly in the US, saying, what is this IPL? It's in India, let's start unpacking India. So they're now looking at India as a source of sporting inspiration almost, and how this body was built, how it propagated itself. But now, once they're looking in here, they're also seeing opportunity to help us continue the build. The other focus now that's firmly put us on the global map is we've firmly put our hand up for 2036. So everyone's saying, well, okay, India has put their hand up to host the games in 2036. And that is obviously, there are going to be a lot of questions around how can we help, this is the international bodies, how can we help India on their journey to 2036? And that's what a lot of these conversations need to be starting to unpack, is we need help. But it's not because we don't have the talent, it's how do we organize that talent? And how do we start becoming an exporter of talent rather than just an importer of talent? How do we home grow our own talent to build out the ecosystems for support around our athletes? I work every single day with the best athletes in the country and the best athletes in the world. And we need to stop more often and ask the athlete, what do you need? It's one of our interview processes at the Go Sports Foundation when we bring on board athletes, is why are you here and why do you need us? 90% of them say, because I need support in the sports science, sports medicine area. Because the biggest fear for an athlete is injury and time out of the sport. So if we can start supplying that, we're going to satisfy a huge percentage of our athletes and keep them in the sporting ecosystem. And the other questions we have to ask is, why is it that 82% of our talented athletes fall out of the system? These are our talented representing athletes, fall out of the system between the ages of 15 and 18. 82% of our athlete cohort is lost. And I know part of it is education, and my dear friend over here, Mr. Nilesh Kulkarni, has some great strategies around solving that problem. But this is some of the things we need to start asking ourselves. So we're firmly on the radar. We need to take advantage of that. and put our hand up for help.
Right, Mr. Kulkarni, coming back to you. So, what are some of the specific fields that India as a country and a society could focus on? I think here I urge all of you to actually move a little, going beyond professional high corporate sport and talking about a larger community level. Let us say, what are the opportunities for adjacent careers that can be built around sports?
For me, let's break that into at least two or three different buckets for our conversation. One, obviously, is the grassroots development. That's where the talent needs to come up, and that in that space, you require hundreds and thousands of people to create that filter process for a talent to grow. But for talent to grow, you need a right person to identify that talent. Do we have enough there? Right now, the answer is no. We need to create that pool of people who can identify good talent at a school level. I'll give you a small example on that. India has got more than 14 lakh schools across India. As per the GR, 1 is to 100 or 1 is to 200 is the requirement to have an, our dear friend runs school and college. So as per the GR, and the government themselves are here, 1 is to 100 to 1 is to 200 is the ratio for you to have a physical education teacher qualified, a coach and a trainer as part of your system. Put together those as a number at a grassroots level, you will require at least 2 to 3 million people. Currently, we don't have that, which is a reality, but that's an opportunity. That creates catering to that one area of addressing base level, foundation level, creating talent. Second, the mid level people who will find a filter, who will actually identify talent, nurture, give it to the district sports complex, sport complex, put that into a state federation for a respective sport, and then the talent is taken care by the government also with the top schemes which government of India is doing enough. I have a fundamental point here to make. Government is doing enough standardizing, accepting nomenclatures now, which is obviously gazette notification out for management and science, where we all have worked hard in sports management and sports science. But do we have private players supporting that in catering to the same job description opportunities? Currently, the answer is slightly no, because we are still living in the era of formal education, which is a management degree. Can't we have that into a specialization? Because your HR norms right now accepts management degree, but if you have a specialization, it becomes a head-on start. They need to be more open in accepting that job roles for people to work in the industry for us to bring that change. And coming at top, there are 3 to 5 industries which actually accepts and absorbs lot many jobs. Obviously, one key component is government of India and state government and federations. Second component is the broadcaster who actually creates jobs for a specialized skills. The third important part is the manufacturing and infrastructure space, which obviously India is investing heavily. The state government is investing, central government is investing, but there are private players who are investing. People like him are investing heavily in creating state of the art infrastructure. Are we creating enough bandwidth or more infrastructure to cater to the need and the demands? Last, most importantly, are we focusing enough on sports tourism inbound? Up till now, imagine the kind of money what we've spent sending our people overseas. You know, we always talk about, oh, that museum in Melbourne is fantastic, or at Lord's, or at Wimbledon. We are spending money there. Why can't we create that experience in India in form of good international events and annual properties? We have that as an opportunity that will also create a good traction of creating manpower, skilled manpower to cater to the demand and actually address the need, because our honorable prime minister is advocating Indianization, make in India, make everything here, and let allow our students to stay in India, to be educated, to work and complement the vision of government of India.
Right. I think talking of Indianization, I think it applies to sports as well. You might be able to address this question, Shobhit Jain. So promoting yoga is part of government policy. So it creates a lot of opportunity, but it also creates the requirement for new skills, because if the yoga trainer is not properly trained himself, it can also cause harm, as we all figure that out. So how are you dealing with identifying and dealing with some of these issues? You could also address or respond to some of those points that Nilesh raised.
Yeah. One thing is specific in yoga, but also allied to it, I think one sector I'll add to Nilesh is because the sectors he said is as a sectoral big business. But there's one thing as sports grows, there is one sector that is really going to big numbers, ground, grassroots is fitness, of which yoga becomes a part of it. Now, here comes the role of, again, not only government, the private sector, first in marrying hands and getting standardization in. So, a lot of protocols now are getting developed. Yoga, from our side of the world, if you know, is also a sport. While Ayush deals it, and we also deal it as a sport. So, a lot of, I would say, documentation of protocols is happening. Courses have been started, which we want to accredit and standardize so that when a professional goes out, he's up to a certain benchmark. And this is not only in yoga, it has to happen, I think, across the segment. Gym trainers, uh, everywhere. So this is exactly, and it's a demand supply game. The moment it works out for the public, there is a demand, there are people who walk in and supply. And as I was saying, the government's role is kind of enabler role. It sets in the protocol, it wants things to happen in a certain bracket, and then the private sector moves in into that bracket and really trains. The numbers come only from the private sector. I think the golden standard is that government tries and makes the ecosystem, but the energy, the impetus comes from the private.
Right. Okay. We'll turn to the private sector in that case. So how are you responding? It is, of course, a question of demand and supply, but in many instances, people may not know that they would need a physiotherapist or that they would need a better gym trainer or so on and so forth. So you will have to first tell the people that, okay, here is a trained, certified person who has the skills to train you or cure you. So how is the private sector dealing with that?
If you see the life of an athlete, right, how do you build an athlete? So first step what Nilesh said was about starting from the grassroots. Somebody has to identify that yes, you have that talent, and there is a complete ecosystem and a team which needs to work with that athlete to take it from that field of play to the podium. That includes sports science, that also includes the technical coaches, that also needs the universities, colleges, training grounds, infrastructure. So if you see yourself every day as an individual, someday you early morning when you get up, you say, today, I don't have that kind of energy. If it can happen within every individual who is just walking or who is going to his office on a daily basis, imagine the role of that mindset, the role of how the body is responding on that day with an athlete when he is supposed to decide whether he will get that medal on that day or he will not get that medal on that day. So it is very very important, it is very pertinent to understand the role of, in addition to technical training, the other aspects of the performance, be it strength and conditioning, be it the nutrition, be it the psychology aspects, be it the rehabilitation. What he just said about injury, most of the star athletes, if they are not managed well, if they are not protected or prevented from the injury, the career goes for a toss. So you need to have a team to take that athlete from the field of play to the podium. That is, one thing which our country needs to focus on. It's like, one team trying to bring in success for the nation. The second area is broadening the base, where you have right infrastructure at different areas, whether it is institutions, stadiums, availability in neighborhood, right manpower, right coaches to train them. So just to give you an example, like we work very closely with few federations, like as university. So we work with the shooting federation, we work with the cycling federation, where we have designed specific courses for technical manpower coaches which these federations will need. So I'm sure Nilesh, you would agree with me. Once you talk about cricket, you talk about the cricket pitch. The ground man is so important. But how many of us know who the ground man is? If the pitch is not laid properly, that impacts the, the ball on the field. So you need a skilled person to do that work. You need a skilled cameraman to capture the ball where it is going, or whether it is any other sport. You need a right person on nutrition. There is an opportunity of building business around food and nutrition for the sporting event. How and why will you see the similar menu in a sporting event for an athlete? We got a chance to host a lot of international competitions. So, one of my learning was that if you lay food for 500 athletes there, the consumption was not more than
Right.
100.
Right.
Every morning in the breakfast, they are happy carrying the bananas and, maybe some tidbits in their bags, because they know that they will not have the Indian food. So changing
Right.
the thought of the ecosystem around sportsmen, keeping the athlete in mind, is what I would recommend there.
Right. John, everybody cannot actually reach the level of being on an IPL, national IPL team. But again, my emphasis is again on community level. What would you think for a district level physiotherapy or expert, or a mental health expert? What does it take, and how do we create that capacity as a country? What is your experience observing and as a practitioner?
I think it's a necessity to have those resources available. It's where you find those resources that's the next question, and the capability of those resources and how we're developing that. It's also about educating people that those resources are of value to them, and you can only do that by exposing them at a much earlier age. You talked about broadening the base. I don't think our base is broad enough. I don't think we do. I don't think we have enough athletes or children capable of being athletes coming in at the bottom of our sporting pyramid. And that's because the physical education system itself, or sports education system itself, needs to be looked at under a very strong lens. There's an old saying I always use: more milk, more cream. If we got more kids coming in who are physically literate, who have motor competent skills, which you need to acquire before the age of 12, otherwise you don't acquire them, then we have this opportunity for more kids to coming through to podiums, but with the right support. The type of support that you're talking about, we have plenty of very good high-level physios. Let me drop back a little bit. When I first came to India in 2004, the word sports physio didn't really exist, let alone sports psychologist, let alone nutritionist, sports nutritionist. As you said, putting sport in front of every one of these professions has now taken it to the next level. The fact that we're having this conversation today means we've come a long, long way. The fact that we respect and value those professions as an integral part of sporting success, either team or individual, means that we have come a long way. The problem is we have a huge population. We have a population that is now expanding in the sporting arena, thankfully. We do have talent in this country. Where we are lacking is numbers of support within that ecosystem to nurture and drive those athletes to the next level. And that's where my dear friends on the right here, and with the help with my dear friend from the government on the right, on the left, is we have to come together in a PP model to try and build out that ecosystem of support, particularly in areas of sports science. As I said, when I ask the athlete what they want, 90% of them say, this is the help I need. It's not a new pair of shoes. It's not a new training venue. We have some of the best training infrastructure in the world in India, by the way. I travel the world, all over the world, seeing infrastructure, and we have some of the best.
Right.
What we do lack
Right.
is the resources to manage, operate, and get the best out of those facilities, and therefore the athletes themselves.
Right. So our time is up, but still, Nilesh, you wanted to make an intervention. So you can take 30 seconds or less than a minute, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Jain, for the concluding remark. The question is, so all these points that we discussed will require a large amount of coordination across government departments, the education, the medical science education, private sector. So you being at the vantage point of all that thing, you will get a minute to conclude with that remark. Now, before that, we'll hear.
Just adding a point, lot of advancements have happened, but there is a lot of scope for our development to cater to that need and a demand. Supply will follow if we address the right area, and currently We are at the cusp of 2030 Commonwealth Games. You know, the kind of manpower you require only in Ahmedabad for an event to be hosted, it's going to be in thousands of numbers starting now. So it's 6 years leading up to that. You put that as an additional layer by 36 if India gets the Olympic uh, bid. Imagine the kind of requirement which will be there in hundreds and thousands, probably more lakhs. That kind of ecosystem in one place, put together all 29 states and 9 union territories, that opens up a different door altogether. But one of the areas which John rightly highlighted, India is a unique country where in every 150 kilometer, things do change. The dialect, the food habits, the lifestyle changes. For us to get our people aligned to address that area is a very interesting opportunity for everyone as a challenge to work towards it to get on the right side of making India play the sport than like the sport.
Right. So Jain, concluding remarks.
Yeah.
And if we have one or two questions, if at all, from the audience, we will take that after the conclusion. This remark is yours.
Yeah. I think you correctly pointed out that since this world is intersectoral, even the government, there are a lot many ministries actually working on different aspects. They need to, I would say, get their steps together and dance together. And this is exactly what is the intention of this government, and we are trying to do it. We are working with Ministry of Education to inculcate physical education in the right spirit, not instructions, but happening ground the round. Then we are talking to probably every person in the, I would say, the educational ecosystem. And when I said add a sport ahead to any field, because in India we have been largely driven by a structured mechanism. Do MBBS, you get to be a doctor. You do BTech, you get to be an engineer. You do a physiotherapy course, you get a physiotherapist. But how does this child who's walking the normal know that there's a world beyond and into the sports available? So we are talking to get them exposure. Maybe not as a degree first, minors in their curriculum, exposures in during their induction process to get exposure so that they are amenable to come out. When he says demand, on the demand side, Commonwealth, Olympics, these are pinnacle events. These don't work out. These are only the, I would say, the pinnacle events. There are hundreds of smaller events coming to the country now. We have a para game soon happening, and we have we are working with many other stakeholders to bring those events to India so that demand is sustainable for those people who choose this career. And
Right.
that's
Yes, on that note, we conclude. Thank you, Nilesh Kulkarni, Amit Bhalla, John Gloster, and Shobhit Jain. Thank you all for being very active participants in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very enlightening session. I'm sure that could have gone on for much longer because there's so many aspects to that when you start talking about it. But I request you to please present a small memento as a token of our appreciation to each and every one on stage, talking about building careers in sport. And could we have a small little memento presented to each one, please? George, okay, Nilesh, Mr. Varghese, could you present that to each and every one of our delegates and panel speakers, please? Thank you so much. Nilesh has taken his. Absolutely, thank you. Dr. Bhalla there as well. Thank you so much. John Gloster and of course Dr. Shobhit Jain. You know, there's so many facets to this little conversation that was on at the moment. When you're talking about beyond the game, building careers in sport, you know, we talk about sports broadcasting as well, and there are kind of key roles there in the broadcast sphere as well to be looked at as a specialized scenario. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your inputs and insights.